Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. So it's a bit of a sad day as the playtest has now officially ended, but we have a lot to learn and we're going to start by learning more about Dual Axe Barbarian. I had a lot of people suggest this when I put my video up about Dual Sword Fighter, and Dual Axe Barbarian is extremely strong. So we're going to get into the gear, the perks, some of the things I tried, what worked for me as a solo player, and where I think this build can be successful. So just to kick this one off, I'm going to show you guys pretty much the first minute of running these two weapons. I have run Barb up to level 20 before, but it was with Felling Axe and Quarterstaff in this recent patch. So this was a whole new experience for me, and basically after this first fight I was like, okay, maybe we're onto something here. So, tip number one, if you're running Smash, don't forget a weapon that actually smashes through doors. And if you're a cleric player, I'm not sure if this happens very often, but try not to judgment your own guys. So let's get right into the gear you should be running. And with Barbarian, and especially this build, it is pretty basic. I mean, any way you can upgrade or improve on what you're already starting with, fabulous. I know I mentioned in the past on other builds that the leather leggings are super cheap, so upgrading those cloth pants for 6 or 7 gold is definitely worth it. The only thing you really need to be adding is a pair of gloves and then a bunch of meds. Crazy enough, you can stack agility on this build, and if you want to be the most athletic Barb in any lobby, go agility and see what happens. It's definitely interesting, and it can definitely work because you're moving around so much more quickly because you're so much lighter. So it's something to consider. I know everyone just stacks a whole bunch of strength and goes full HP. Yeah, I get it. It makes sense. But if you want to try something a little unique, I actually had a lot of fun going agility with light gear. So alongside just some pretty simple gear upgrades, you're going to want to take a lot of pots, especially if you're running toughness, which I like to run because your HP pool is so large. 1 or 2 pots is just not going to cut it. So take a couple stacks and then some bandages on top of that. Take a whole bunch of protection pots, mainly because there will be times when you're stuck in a corner or in a long hallway and an archer is just waiting for you. You're a big target, and yes, you are fast, but you don't have the projectile resistance as the fighter class does. So it's a tough one. I think that's probably the most difficult part, and why I started running more agility was just because that close down speed is so essential, and that's pretty much why that one skill is pretty much untouchable, the one that buffs your strength and movement speed. Okay, so moving on to skills, we have actually a lot of options. I would say that I'm actually quite impressed with how many different choices you have that, kind of work on the Barbarian. Not all of them are perfect, but it kind of gives you quite a bit of choice. So, firstly, Reckless Attack is one that I don't ever usually take. Especially on this build, you don't really want to be buffing just a single swing, you're going to be swinging a lot. And like I mentioned earlier, Rage, the movement speed and strength bonus you get from it, makes it pretty much untouchable if you're playing solo. Don't have a wizard or a cleric buffing you as you're running at people. You need to get there a lot quicker, and if you don't make it there in time, you're toast. So I always run Rage. It seems to be the one I haven't changed out at all. I have witnessed some people swap Rage for Warcry, not to be mixed up with Savage Roar. So Warcry is the one that buffs your HP. Savage Roar is the one that applies the fear. So I actually see a lot of people that are more worried about PvE run the fear on top of the HP pool increase. I actually use the HP pool increase alongside Rage, and I'm going to kind of explain why. It's mainly because of that perk that increases your HP by 10%. With all the kind of lack of resistances you're going to have, I found having that extra bump of health when you're starting a fight is actually very useful. So I end up running it, but if you want to pause the video and look at kind of my suggested perks, you can interchange a lot of these and discuss a lot of them more, but essentially the ones in reds are one I almost always take, and then the ones in blue being ones I rarely take or are basically interchangeable. They can be very good and everyone can make an argument for them, but I do have one in green, and that's a new color to this whole system. Another way to look at this is just one or red being first choice, 2 blue being secondary choices, and then 3 being somewhat experimental. And that basically means untested, and that's Carnage. And the reason why being I didn't have enough time to really give it proper run, and I'm still curious about how it actually works, because if that's just a simple kill on a skeleton or a spider, grants you 10 more strength, that's about a bump of about 20 HP. And then I started asking questions, well, does it work on multiple targets? Can you have that buff 3 times, like stacked on top of each other? I don't have answers to those. I wish I did, but I never end up having time to kind of finish that one off. So like I said, there's lots of options here to mix and match. I've had people suggest not running Smash. I have tried the recovers 12 HP after killing a player, and I will show an example of this. If you're going a full PvP, kind of just storming through places, it can actually be pretty decent. The other 3 are kind of interchangeable, and I think if you weren't going to go with the chestplate one, the reason why I take the increased damage, what's it called here, physical power, or physical damage bonus, I just like having a ton of damage and doing it quickly. Alongside this, you also get some pretty solid movement speed out of it. Some of the starting chest plates aren't really that amazing, and they slow you down quite a bit. So maybe if you find one later on and you want to switch out some of these perks, it certainly makes sense. Alright, so let's discuss weapon options and combinations. I know in my last video I already mentioned that if you hold both left mouse button and right mouse button down, you get the combo attack sort of chain that uses both weapons swinging simultaneously to finish their attack patterns. I think it's absolutely crazy how much damage you can do when both of these weapons are swinging and you're hitting with their full potential. That being said, it means you have to run 2 really good weapons, so you can't be losing a lot of damage on your hatchet or your Horseman's axe. So, keeping in style with the same sort of setup, I actually am going to argue that just simply running the Horseman's axe by itself has its bonuses as well. So we're going to kind of compare the 2 options. I know simply running the Horseman's axe by itself isn't dual wielding, but with the same kind of setup, you can deal a lot of damage and move a lot faster. The reason why I'm offering this, because if you're a solo player like myself, you actually have a bit more mobility, and you can take out single targets almost just as quickly. That being said, if you're running this dual wield setup in a team, it's absolutely scary the type of damage you could do simply holding W key and both your left mouse button and right mouse button down. So I'm going to show you some examples of where each option works, and you guys can decide which one you prefer. So we're going to start off with an example of the dual wielded combo attack just chewing through some armor. Look, obviously it wasn't a fairy tale ending, but the amount of shields, armor rating, and just overall damage we did so quickly, if I hadn't hit the wall or been a little bit better with aiming a couple of my hits, I could have chewed through these guys in no time. And having that amount of power on the Barbarian class is extremely fun. It's just a little harder to pull off when you're solo. Just imagine a build like this with a Wizard's Haste, or Flame, or a Protection Bubble, or a Bless from a Cleric. Any of those things buffing you in this situation would be really cool to see. Unfortunately, 90% of what I see with Barbarian is just felling axes. So if you're thinking of going full solo and full agility, I really think the Horseman's Axe by itself is probably the better option. The problem I found when I was running the dual weapons is, yes, the hatchet actually takes quite a bit of movement speed off your overall base movement, and I kind of got so comfortable with just literally just pressing W and holding both mouse buttons down. I would just walk into opponents and just chew through them, yeah, but I almost got so familiar with it, it started to be a burden, because I'd run into that one Barbarian with a felling axe, and I I just became an easy target. So with the fighter class, I was all about agility and dodging those swings, and you have to remember to do that if you're going to run this build. Either option, you have to keep moving side to side. So if you're going to go straight agility, I actually recommend just going straight Horseman's Axe, and that gives you a little bit more ability to kind of dart in and out of swings. So, like, for example, these kills coming up are just straight Horseman Axe. Kind of came out of nowhere.
Oh, right in front of us. Oh, it's leaving on. That's the grandpa dude.
All yours, my man.
It's Dusty Grandpa, you did kill him.
You're damn right I did.
Fuck yeah.
So, for any of you wondering who that guy is or that stranger is, I actually spent the better part of my last day just burning through my gear in the gathering hall. Basically trying to play with newer players, people who hadn't really got the chance to try this out, and I was kind of noticing this trend where there was a lot of good gear and a lot of new players were just getting absolutely destroyed. So I did my best to kind of help them along, and I may make a video about this. But I'm definitely going to be making a video with my fighter class and updating a lot of things that I kind of see differently now. If you guys want to discuss this video and some of the thoughts on my take on this kind of new design or build with the Barbarian, I have no problem discussing it. We're all still very much learning this, and I'll see you in the dungeon when this game opens back up again. Cheers.